This is a special edition of PFTPM. We're going to be talking to plenty of general managers throughout the NFL in the aftermath of the draft, as if they have nothing better to do now that the draft is over. The first victim this year is Bills general manager Brandon Beane. Hello, Brandon. How are you, pal?
Mike, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, I appreciate you doing it. And that's the thing. Like, the last thing you want to do is media. I appreciate you doing media the week after the draft. Don't get me wrong. But don't you just want to like go to the beach or something? I know the work doesn't end yet, but don't you feel like you deserve to do something other than work?
I'm ready to go to the golf course. So I'm getting my clubs out and hopefully maybe get to the course this weekend.
What is the feeling that goes through your body once that last pick is made? I know you still have to go get the undrafted free agents, but still the draft is over. What's that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's a sigh of relief. You're kind of just like, all right, it's been a long process, an 11-month process. I mean, we'll start here at the end of the month, even talking about next year's crop of guys at our Blesto meetings. But it's a good time. We kind of just round up the draft room, pass out, some cold ones and share some laughs of where we thought guys were going to go. And we get into a lot of arguments during the process. Scouts they're convicted on where this guy will go or what his skill set is. And you get some funny moments, but we kind of laugh at those and just enjoy that the draft's over.
How closely do you pay attention to all the things that are said by your contemporaries or coaches with other teams as the draft approaches? Because the mandatory press conference happens. There's different media availabilities from February through late April. People say things, they don't say things. They have guys in for top 30 visits. They don't have guys in. Do you map all that out and pay close attention to kind of crack the code on who's covering up their intentions and who's maybe accidentally blurting out what they plan to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a feel for how teams operate, and if there's been a change at the top, you really watch, some of those guys versus, if you're talking about Kevin Colbert, who coincidentally is retiring this weekend, but guys like that, they have, Kevin's been there in charge for so long, you've known how they do business, but versus some of these new guys, even my guy Joe Shane that just went to the Giants, so he'll have his own way to do things. But we do try and track certain things and see if there's trends in certain areas of, if this guy goes to the pro day, if is it the pro scouting or if they send their coordinator there or things like that. But ultimately, you never know because they may have every intent to get the player, but someone beat them to it.
What do you do after a given draft to go back and basically self-scout your department, yourself, things you've done, could have done differently, moves you could have made, moves you didn't make? How much time do you look back in the rearview mirror and how the draft went in an effort to improve it the next time around?
Yeah, a lot of that now and even in the future, as far as where we had grades, where guys went. Was it, more of an anomaly that team just had a real need that they said they got to go get them. They don't want to take a chance. Sometimes that happens, but you definitely do some recon there. You can also look at trends in history. How many corners generally go in the first round or the first two rounds? This year, 6 receivers went in a row. We're starting to see, as the game is evolving and the receivers market's going nuts this year anyway, we're starting to see more receivers going even higher when you didn't used to see that. It was more quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher. We're taking all those premium spots now, receiver, and to offset that, corners as well.
And it's a fascinating concept, especially because you're part of this conversation. You guys have a great receiver. You made the commitment to pay him market value to keep Stefon Diggs around, to keep him happy at a time when unhappy players are finding easier and easier paths out of town. How do you reconcile? Because you mentioned quarterbacks, tackles, pass rushers. You're not going to find great ones in the draft unless you earn one of the high picks and get it right. Mm-hmm. But with receivers, it's almost become like running backs. There's so many of them every year, but unlike running backs, veterans are getting paid a lot of money. Yeah. How do you reconcile the urgency to pay a guy you have versus the reality that there's plenty of others out there, and I can get a guy, take away the name, take away the jersey, take away what he's done. I can get a guy right out of school, a lot cheaper, lock him in. Why don't I do that? How do you resolve paying your guy versus rolling the dice on a new guy?
Well, I think it's you got a proven product, a guy who's been in your building, who's got a relationship with your quarterback, and ultimately you have to have a cutoff. Just like you do when you go in to buy a house. You're going, all right, we'd like to buy the house for this, but we're walking away at this number, and you kind of set those parameters before you do a deal. And ultimately, I think Steph and his agent did a fair job of pointing out their points of even where the number 2 market has gone to why the number 1 market should be. And, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams had gotten done before ours. So, but, I just tried to envision, all right, if we can either sign him to an extension, maybe he plays it out, but maybe we have some issues with that down the line. Or we can go the route that some teams are choosing, trade and redraft. But I just couldn't imagine where we're getting what we were going to get to replace Steph in the sense of what he brings our offense. He opens it up for Gabe Davis, for Dawson Knox, and some of the other guys that we have here. We're a different offense without Steph.
And isn't that kind of what we're losing sight of with this idea that you could trade an accomplished receiver and just backfill with a first rounder? There's a presumption that guy walks through the door and plays well. And we know from history, for every guy that works out really well, there's a guy that doesn't. It seems like a heck of a risk to me to say we're going to let the bird in the hand go and just assume we're going to go grab another bird in the draft.
Yeah, I haven't been around very many number 1 receivers. In Carolina, we had Steve Smith, and he was a clear number 1. And when we got here, we were truly, our offense hit another level when we got a true number 1 guy. And to say that I'm definitely going to hit that in the draft where we've been drafting, that seemed like more of a risk I wasn't willing to take if we could get Steph done at a number that made sense for him and made sense for us, which fortunately we did.
As media, we kick around ideas all the time about why there are so many great receivers today, but you're in a better position than I am to give me an assessment. Why is it that we've gotten to this point where every year there's so many great receivers in the draft?
I think just the evolution of the game and the rules and these the 7-on-7s starting. Mike, it. I know he was growing up. If you threw the ball in junior high 3 times a game, you guys were airing it out. It was Air Coryell. It's just, nowadays you go watch Pop Warner football and these kids are throwing the ball in Pop Warner football. And you got 7-on-7 camps. I just had one graduate high school a year ago. I got another one in high school now. And that's what is coming up for them in the summer is 7-on-7 camps. So you're seeing more quarterbacks that are coming in with the tools. And then you just got all these receivers, 4 wide, 5 wide. So more guys are getting chances to play and show their skill set. It's going to the college game, which ultimately has worked its way into our league in the NFL.
Something I haven't thought of until we had this conversation, because I've talked about the 7-on-7 before, so I'm somewhat relieved that we're on the same page, that I've got that part of it figured out. But what about the defensive backs? Is it that the best athletes are now being attracted to the receiver position and not playing DB? Because you would think that if there's more guys running pass routes and catching passes than 7-on-7s, more opportunities for guys to learn how to cover them. But we don't see the same increase in great defensive backs coming into the draft that we see in receivers.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's still a premium on that corner position, because it's hard to find. And the rules of the game are so pro receiver. If the same contact is going on offense to a defender, it gets let go. That many times is called, either illegal contact or pass interference on the defender. So playing defense in our game is harder than ever, especially defensive back, just the way the rules are. And again, I think guys like scoring touchdowns versus being scored on. Guys are naturally going to go. You hear it all the time. Stefon Diggs, Steph's brother, went to Alabama as a receiver, and they thought, man, this guy would be a big, good-looking corner. We think that's his long-term play, and he's had a heck of a start in Dallas.
You've been with the Bills for 5 years now. That's blink of an eye type stuff. From my perspective, it's got to be from yours. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your 5 years on the job?
expect the unexpected. I mean, we all know how to scout and do those things, and I can run the cap and run the day-to-day operation. But Mike, you come in here, you're doing things for a third to half of the day almost all the time that you had no idea when you woke up that morning. You're constantly dealing, whether it's an agent calling you that something's going on, something's brewing in the media, you got a player that's dealing with a crisis at home, somebody's been in trouble or dealing with it. You got a full staff of people between our trainers, our scouts, all the people in our front office, our equipment guys. You got a lot of people that life happens, and you got to help them deal through it. So I think those are the things that there's no playbook for some of the things that you run across. The anthem issues that we had, and just all the various things that come up on your plate with how to deal with. There's no playbook. There is a playbook for how to scout, for how to do your salary cap, how to do staff contracts, things like that. There's not for some of the things that we get thrown when we walk in the door.
You mentioned Kevin Colbert earlier. He's retiring after a great one with the Steelers. And I did a little research on his background over the weekend. He's not the kind of guy that's going to talk much about his background unless you ask him about it. But he's been a college baseball coach in 2 different places, did some different things before he ended up in football. I'm curious about you, Brandon. When did you find your way into football, and what was it that drew you there?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I grew up playing football when my parents let me at 8 years old. And so I played tackle. We didn't have flag football where I grew up. So it was tackle football through high school. Unfortunately, I tore my ACL my senior year. And I went to college and just decided I was going to be a coach. And that was my plan, was I was going to go to college and then just coach somewhere. What happened was my senior year, when I tore it in football, it knocked me out of basketball. So the athletic director hired me to be the junior high boys basketball coach. He knew I would love to be around the game since I couldn't play. And that kind of turned my head on to being a coach. But went to college and talked to people and decided I wanted to try to get into a front office, and, took a 4-week summer internship and with the Carolina Panthers as a PR media intern, and went home for a week or two. And then I wanted to get into football operations. The guy that was the intern for that season left, and they called me, and that was Dom Capers last year in Carolina. I was a season intern. Unfortunately, Dom got fired. I thought, oh man, all the good things I've done are out the window, but Marty Herney takes over, and George Seifert comes in, and that's kind of how I got in, and just I learned a lot from Marty. And then when Marty got let go, Dave Gettleman comes in, worked with him for a few years, and fortunately got this opportunity here in Buffalo.
Let me pivot to something that I know you've talked about several times, and you're probably not rather talk about again, but I think it's important because we've seen organizations in recent years get scarred by big moments in the postseason, whether it was the Seahawks in Super Bowl 49 with the pass instead of the run at the end of the game, the 28-3 lead by the Falcons that was blown. And I feel like both of those organizations struggled in very different ways to put that behind them. What have you done to put the playoff loss behind you? And how confident are you that when it's time to get going with the 2022 season, it's not going to be something that causes any lingering issues for the locker room, for the coaching staff, for the front office, for anyone?
Yeah, I think you have to have honest, open conversations, and just like we dissect the draft, like we were talking about, go back and dissect the finish of that game in regulation and then overtime, and you have to be honest. And if you made a mistake in that process, whether it was a play call, whether it was a player, whatever your role in it was, you got to own up to it. And I think that's been the process. It's hard because it's an abrupt end, and you go through that, but open, honest dialogue. And what are we taking from this? You got to learn from it, or you're going to repeat it. And I think our culture is strong here, Mike. Those things can cause issues. There's no doubt. You've pointed out some places that may not have recovered, but we feel, with Josh Allen, Josh is just one of those guys. He's, obviously he played very well in that game, but he's got the mindset that, we're not gonna let that bother us. You bring in a guy like Von Miller, who just won the Super Bowl, who's won 2 Super Bowls, beat us when I was in Carolina and in the Denver one. But, you try and add some pieces of guys that can instill confidence, different viewpoints. And last year was last year. Only one team is going to be happy at the end of the year, in my mind. You either win it or you don't. We had our opportunities. We had our opportunities the year before, and we didn't do it, and we came back. So new year, new team, new season, and we're excited about where we're at.
Most coaches and general managers would say if you let them pick their schedule, every game would be Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern, and every game would be at home too, but they can't have that. But the starting time is the same, the schedule is the same, everything's the same. You're going to be one of the teams undoubtedly this year that's all over the map, prime time, different days, et cetera. When the schedule comes out on May 12th, what's the first thing you're going to look for?
Oh, week 1. Where does it start? Are you home? Are you away? Is it Sunday at 1? Is it a prime time start? Is it a division team? Those are always again. Our division's gotten very competitive from the offseason moves those 3 teams have made. So I always look week 1. Where are our division games, and then the finish? Are we finishing with 2 on the road, 2 at home? What does it look like? What are our weather games potentially going to be? And just that's kind of how I break it down, and we'll kind of see where it goes. We're excited for what's in store.
Would you rather be home or away week 1?
I don't really care too much. You got to play them all, so I'm fine. To be honest with you, I'm fine either way. I just want to make sure we play well, Mike.
Well, you've played very well. The team's done great in recent years, and it feels like the arrow continues to point straight up. We wish you all the best this season, Brandon. Thanks as always for some of your time. Congratulations on a great draft. We'll talk to you again down the road.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.